Hey guys, it is Miki Same Unlimited, and today is Saturday. Saturdays are where I tackle my various top 10 subjects, and the top 10 subject that I'm going to be doing for this Saturday is my top 10 favorite villains in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So right now, since you guys liked the video and you made my day, I'm going to actually start getting on into my top 10 favorite villains, so let's get on into this with the top 10 countdown. Now, the thing I like so much about Bandit Keith, because a lot of people are like, why Bandit Keith? He's like so underrated. Who cares? The thing I like so much about him is that he was an average Joe. He was just basically an everyday guy. He didn't have any magical powers or any supernatural bullshit. It was just he was a standalone human being, normal. He was just a dick, and he was a pro. And that's what I liked. I loved his machine cards. I loved Launcher Spider. Pendulum fucking machine, all of them were so cool. I liked Machine King, and I liked that he was so cocky and confident, and he played one of my favorite cards, which was Zoa. I loved that shit back in the day. I just think he was so cool, and even when he got possessed, then he played Ciara, which is basically the two cards that I grew up with when I was younger. I just think he was so cool, and my favorite thing about him was just like, it was just so nice to see a character that was from America. No, I'm kidding. Sora going into Arc V, I saw him and I was just like, oh my god, he's going to be like the annoying cheerleader type. I could see it a mile away. These fluffle cards are just, you know, they're too cutesy. This is just boring, whatever. And then he was just like, I'm a spy. I'm a traitor. I'm not here for you motherfuckers. I'm here to fulfill my duty to fucking capture Yuzu and all that shit. I was just like, ooh, I like where this is going. I said, you're doing well. And then he turned on academia and he was just like, fuck this school. I'm going to be with them. Because you know what? They respected me and they were my friends. So fuck all y'all. And I was just like, one of my favorite things about Sora as well was I liked how when you first see him that you view him as garbage and that he's not a good player, and then as time goes on you realize that he was one of the best duelists in Academia and that he was like basically one of the best soldiers that Academia had, and I love that quality. I thought that he was so respected, and that's why I really like Sora so much. Now, the thing I wanted to say about Pegasus that makes me like him so much is that I like him for the wrong reasons. Every single time when I ever saw Pegasus do anything bad, I really didn't care because Pegasus was so humorous. Pegasus had a good personality, and his personality made me look past all the negative things that he does. And my favorite thing is that I don't even like him as a villain. I like him just because he's funny. The funny thing I view about Pegasus is even when Pegasus went that extra mile to go, you know, more on a negative evil side, he was like, oh, we're going to have a shadow game. I'm going to summon Thousand Eyes Idol, relinquish Thousand Eyes Restrict. I still kind of was just like, you know, I liked it better when you were funny. I'm like, use your fucking millennium mind, look into his shit and be a shady cunt. I like that better. Keep doing that. You're fun. Now, the way I looked at Yuri was I always viewed Yuri as the one that was the most sadistic out of all the U-Boys. I said, wow, he really doesn't have a very good control of that because it's just like he's snagging people left and right. He don't give a fuck who's on his side or whatever. He's just a fucking mean asshole. And the thing I liked about him was that he was so cunty. He was cunty, he was cunning, he was very sly. He was very like under the radar, just like, oh my god, you hurt me. He was like really like overly gay, and I really like that as well, obviously, because since I am gay, I could obviously appreciate another evil gay person. So, you know, hence me being an evil gay person, I could really appreciate that in another character. The one thing that always like made me feel weird when I looked at Yuri was why his eyebrows were like this, because he only had like such the smallest eyebrows that I've ever seen. Carly, the best way I could describe to anybody is that Carly was my favorite character in all of 5D. I loved Carly the most, and Carly, to be honest, when I first saw her flying through the fucking window and I saw her fucking splat on the floor, I was just like, you asshole. She was just a reporter. She was so nice. And then she came back and she was all with that dark look and she was with the fortune ladies. I was like, I'm here for it. Now, my favorite thing that happened with Carly was that when Carly had to duel Jack, and she was basically like, Jack, we can have all of this. We can rule all of this together, and I love you. And I was just like, That's so sweet. And I was deep down, I was like crossing my fingers. I'm like, Jack, don't fucking win. Let her beat you. Become evil, more evil than you naturally are, and fucking be with her. And I don't care what the fuck happens. Lose. And then when I saw Jack win, I was just like, no. And then he was holding Carly and he put the glasses on. I was just like, I can't. I'm not here for this. I can't. I can't. I know this is just a fucking anime, but I can't. Get away from me. Now, I did say that Carly was my favorite 5D character. However, I do believe that Callen was a way better villain. For me, he was my favorite villain out of 5D as a whole because he literally killed somebody. He literally was a murderer. He literally killed a fucking like security guard or a cop, and he was just like, all right, now I'm gonna go to jail. And then he got out of jail, and then he became a sauna, and then he went to fucking get his revenge on Yusei for turning him in. And I was just like, for a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh villain story, I was here for it. I was just like, that was just so well made. I just thought his like whole backstory was so well put together. That was one thing I really liked back in the day watching 5D from, fucking 2009, was basically seeing something so dark coming out of just a card game, especially a children's card game, seeing someone get literally murdered. I really liked how the Infernities looked. I never played them, but I also thought that Infernities really represented a dark, evil human beings deck. I kind of feel like a dark, evil villain would play something like Infernities, so I thought it was very fitting. Now, you see, everything I liked about Pegasus is amplified with Darts, because Darts had a lot of funny one-liners. He was humorous, he was cunty, but my favorite thing about that Darts had over Pegasus was that Darts was actually menacing. You actually feared the Orichalcos. You actually feared him. Like, one of my favorite lines that Darts ever said was when Yugi was just like, you told me to gaze inside my heart and to find only darkness, but you were wrong. And then Darts was just like, well, then you gazed in the wrong place. I was just like, those like little side comments that fucking Darts did all the time would just always make me laugh. And at the same time, his deck was busted. I love seeing Divine Serpent, and every single time when Darts lost something, he was just like, well, I'm back better than ever. And the way that Darts had to lose was so like all over the place and sloppy, but you know what, I was there for it. I loved it. And Darts overall, I loved the level of manipulation. He was like one of the best puppeteers that I've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! That was able to like have all these strings on top of all this shit, and he was just like, dance puppets, dance. And basically, I love how almost everybody in the Yu-Gi-Oh series fell outside of just Atem. Atem was like the only one that was able to stand the test of time through Darts, just like him throughout all history. And I just thought that that was so interesting because Joey fell, Kaiba fell, Ma fell, Pegasus fell, everyone fell. And I thought that that was so cool to see everyone else fall to the wayside to Darts like that. And I thought that was just like, now, you see, the one thing about Marik is Marik had very shitty motivation. I never really liked the concept of why Marik was evil because I thought that Marik had very poor execution. I'll just say that. But the thing that I loved so much about Marik was all the great duels he gave me. The duel with Strings versus Yugi was great, where he got Slifa, amazing duel. The duel between Joey being possessed and Yugi, that's one of my favorite duels of all time because I just loved all like the struggle that Joey had to like, break from Marik's control. Amazing. Loved it. And I just feel like a lot of the times when Marik was dueling through somebody else was just like so fun. And I was just like on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Because it was just so fun. You see, when it came to just Marik going full on crazy, I was all there for it too. I was just like, you know what? Good. And when it came to Marik versus Joey, that's like one of my favorite duels of all time again. I was just like, I loved so many duels with Marik in it. And I kind of feel like as much as I think that his motivation was shit, damn, did he leave an impact on me. And he was definitely menacing and gave me some of the best duels that I've ever seen. Zork from Arc V is a character that really has almost no explanation really to why he was evil. It was basically just like people cheered him on and then he killed everybody. The end. The one thing I liked so much about Zork is what he stood for. And I liked how he was basically just an everyday guy. And the thing that happened to him was power corruption. He was basically cheered on and they gave him the power to say, here's all this virtual reality. It's all real. It could all do whatever the fuck you want. And then he was just like, well, you say I'm so strong. I'm all this. Because the funny thing is, at one point in time, he hurt somebody and you actually see it on his face that he actually regretted hurting somebody. But everyone else was just like, no, be violent, be an evil motherfucker, go for it. But you know what? That's the world we live in. Like, let's say if someone on YouTube uploads something that, you know, isn't very nice, they'll probably continue doing it if it makes them money. Nobody cares, because people all want to just do what the fuck people want. People want the attention, and power corruption fucked Zork up, and that's what led Zork down the road he was. But I was just like, wow, someone that had those 4 dragons, Astrograph Sorcerer, he had so many cool cards. I loved it. I loved basically his whole setup. I just feel for a character that had such a small story, I just felt like it left such a big impact on me, because I just love the concept of seeing someone that could just be an everyday schmo that just could just be pushed down that road, just basically just given power. And I just love that concept. My number 1 favorite villain is also my number 1 favorite character, which is Raphael from the original series. Raphael was the first to beat Yugi. I loved for what he stood for. I loved how he respected his cards. I also loved that he was manipulated to being evil. I just liked how he manipulated Yugi. I just loved how he wouldn't let his cards go to the graveyard. He stood for all the right things, but he was on the wrong side. And that's what I thought was so cool. Because in the end, by him being on the wrong side, you didn't know how to feel. At the end of the day, it's like you respected him for how he respected his cards and how he was as a duelist. Basically, everything that you see that he stands for is so respectable, but seeing him on the bad side, you say to yourself, like, I don't know if I should be rooting for this guy or not. And I rooted for him. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to see Yugi fall. I don't want to see Yugi lose his soul. But in the end, I loved Raphael, and I liked how he was able to push Atem to that. You never see Atem that desperate. And Atem basically lost. Even if the seal was activated or not, he was going to lose. And I think for a character to beat Atem is so impactful. And I think that that was just so interesting. And I just like, adios, your highness. And then it's just like... So basically, those were my top 10 favorite villains. If you guys would like to see me tackle another interesting top 10, leave it in the comment section below. Maybe I'll make your top 10 into a full-based video, and I'll give you guys the credit. So if you enjoyed this video, like the video, 800 likes would be the goal, or 500 likes, or 400 likes. Any like would be greatly appreciated. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and if you haven't, you know, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. My Tuesdays on my weekly topics, my Thursdays on my ranty Thursdays, my Saturdays on my top 10s, and my Sundays on my 6 5th pain challenge, where I duel my subscribers. I'll see you guys in a future video, and have a great day.